Hi everyone, it's 2 o'clock, so I might just get started with some basic stuff and then we can get into some of the more content and hear from Kate Murphy from Blacktown and a bit more of an update about the WSUD Maintenance Compliance Framework. My Zoom is being a bit weird, so I hope you can no, you can see me, cool. So yeah, getting started, just wanting to start with an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge all of the traditional owners of the land that we're all on today and their continuous connection to land and sea. I'd also like to pay my respects to elders past and present. I would also just like to put a disclaimer here. I do work for Ocean Protect, a company that supplies, manufactures, and maintains WSUD assets. So there is a potential conflict of interest for me, but also for a lot of people on this call today. And so we'll be doing what we can to manage that conflict of interest. In terms of the agenda today, just doing some basic logistics at the start. We'll then be hearing for about 15 minutes from Kate Murphy, the Senior WSUD Compliance Officer at Blacktown City Council. Have a bit of a Q&A with her. Followed by that, I'll provide a bit of an update about the framework, have an opportunity for Q&A, and then look to try to wrap up about the hour mark. And then if anyone wants to stay on and talk a bit more, happy to do that as well. So in terms of logistics, if you can just keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking, just helps avoid random background noises. If you can raise your hand virtually if you do have something to speak during Q&A, that way I can call upon you. When you do speak, if you can say where you work from, the organization you're at, just so that people have a bit of context who you are. And just be respectful of everyone's opinions, ideas, and time. Regarding opinions, everyone has different experiences, different thoughts about how we should be doing things. And so it's important to respect that. We're trying to solve an issue that's been around for a very long time, so it's going to require a bit of creative thinking, so no idea is a stupid idea. And in terms of time, I'll be sticking to the agenda so that we can get out on time. Also, it's not the time to kind of really be pushing or promoting products and services and all of that, so I'll be making sure that that doesn't really happen. In terms of participants, we've had quite a few people being involved in the past 8 meetings to date, from councils, state government, consultants, manufacturers, and a whole bunch of others. So it's been really great to see so many organizations get involved in these meetings, and it's a welcome to any new organization or individual here today that hasn't come along before. For those of you that are new, just a quick summary. The National WSUD Compliance Network is a group meeting regularly to discuss WSUD compliance, but also hold the development of the framework accountable and make it transparent and provide an opportunity for feedback on that framework. And then the WSUD Maintenance Compliance Framework is a free package of information, resources, and tools for councils to improve the implementation and management of WSUD assets within their jurisdiction. And so if anyone has to leave early or wants to get in touch after today, you can email me, you can call me, you can check out the WSUD Compliance website or connect via LinkedIn or visit wsudcompliance.com.au and access the framework from there if that's of interest. And so starting today, I'm going to call on Kate Murphy to come and do a bit of an update on the Blacktown City Council WSUD Compliance Program, which at the moment is the only really compliance program looking at private WSUD assets. And so she is the Senior WSUD Compliance Officer and replaced me when I was working at Blacktown. And so I'll call on Kate to share your screen and camera.
Okay. Bear with me just a second. I'll just get this one going.
So your desktop at the moment.
Yeah, the slideshow is just about to start. Let me know when that comes through. Okay, yep. Great stuff. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, great. So yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak today. So as Daniel said, I'm Kate. Last year, I delivered a presentation on setting up a WSUD compliance program, and I spoke about how Blacktown City Council has adapted their approach. So we've now been operating our compliance program for about 18 months now. So today, I'd just like to share with you all my experience in operating our program. So I'll speak a bit about how we've experienced an increase in compliance through just simple engagement strategies, and then I will share some of the challenges we've experienced with tracking WSUD systems and tracking property ownership. I'll also share some learnings from implementing some of our enforcement actions. And last up, I'll share just a quick snapshot of some of the stats of our program, and then there'll be an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have. So just to give you a brief overview of our program, I won't go into any detail here, but we operate a reporting-based compliance program that monitors and manages privately owned WSUD systems. And we do this through engagement with property owners, tenants, and property managers. To identify properties and systems, we first find information on the WSUD systems and properties through a number of different sources. And this can be reviewing past development records, through internal referrals, or when people register their Section 88 positive covenant and restricted covenant applications. We also get information from other sections in council, and through community complaints or notifications. And there's also other avenues to find information through assessment of various development documentation that comes through to council. For our program, property owners are required to regularly inspect and maintain their WSUD systems, and this is required under terms of a positive covenant registered on the land title. And we need property owners or their authorised agents to send us all records of inspection and maintenance activities. And this demonstrates that they're meeting their maintenance requirements. Since completing a one-year trial last year, using this methodology, we're continuing to increase numbers of participating properties in our program. At the moment, the way that works is we receive maintenance reports that are sent to council through a dedicated email address. Our compliance officers log and store these reports in our compliance system, and then we provide feedback to the customer via email. And we regularly assess compliance through looking at our register and identifying properties that are non-compliant. Okay, so over the last year, we've been tracking our compliance rates, and you'll see on this graph, it's just a year's worth of data. That's what the yellow line here is the compliance rate, and the pink bars are showing times where or the numbers of letters or notifications we issued to property owners. We carried out at the start a dedicated period of focusing on issuing reminder emails and corrective action letters, and we saw an increase of over 85% at one stage. And as you can see on this slide, there's an uptick in compliance following those issues of those notices. So we're continuing to track this data, and it will tell us more of a story over time. But generally, we found that when we've engaged with people, they are generally trying to do the right thing. As an overall picture, we're seeing compliance rates at around about 70%. Okay, so I'd like to talk to you a little bit about some of the challenges that we've had, and also some opportunities over the last year. Challenges. So we have some areas where managing private systems can be quite tricky, particularly as we have limited resources. But we're continually looking to ways to improve that. One of the challenges we have is tracking. And as I mentioned in my earlier slide, that there are multiple ways in which we identify properties, and information can come from a number of separate systems. When we receive new information, we log this in our compliance system, and we regularly review this system to see new properties that we can engage with to let them know what their requirements are. This process can be quite highly administrative and have a high administrative load on our compliance officers, but it is really crucially important to track this information because this is key for ongoing management of these systems. The key thing there that we found is having robust record system is highly beneficial. Other challenges that we found with properties is particularly with subdivision and large developments. And the challenges we have is that for these type of developments, construction can happen in multiple different stages. There could be multiple development approvals and also modifications associated with those. So the difficulties that we have with these are that who do we send the notices to? How do we track who is in ownership of that land at any one time, which can be quite challenging at times. Quite often at the development stage, information that we receive can change multiple times over the life cycle of that development. Other challenges that we found in tracking information is that larger commercial developments can have multiple businesses operating with different maintenance contractors servicing different aspects of the business, and this is tricky when it comes to assessing whether a property is compliant, as well as engaging with different contacts for that particular site. Okay, so so enforcement strategies. We have a few properties that we have identified as non-compliant, and we've taken some enforcement actions with these. Two examples that we have where we've undertaken site inspections. Through this process, we found a number of things that need to be considered, because as we increase properties, the number of inspections is likely to increase also. And I'm sure, like many organisations and people on this call, we are limited in our resources and in-house resources to carry out these tasks. So for this aspect, we've outsourced this to contractors to carry out inspections on council's behalf. Challenges with the actual inspections is that one of the key things for us was communication with the property owner or the site operative. It's sometimes difficult to get a hold of who is responsible for that site, even though there is an owner. They don't necessarily have direct involvement with that site. So that's can be difficult at times. Other things to consider, access can be logistically difficult depending on the type of site. So in this example, commercial and operational sites have additional movements of vehicles, there's people involved, and so there's different safety considerations. One of the properties that we issued an inspection notice to is one of those sites. It had multiple businesses operating there. It was problematic for us gaining access, and this was due to different safety protocols for each individual site, and it was difficult to have an on-site contact available to facilitate that process. So from that experience, we've adjusted our approach, and we now place the responsibility on the site owner to ensure that access can be gained on the date that we've arranged. And any failure to provide access will result in a penalty fee that we've recently introduced. Another example, we had a site that was vacant, so there was no site contact. This was an on-site detention basin. There was a lot of problems with this site in terms of maintenance, and there was other environmental concerns. This property hadn't responded to any of our notices, and the other areas of concern were for environmental health and pollution as a result of its failure. These concerns were addressed from a different aspect. So this particular site was issued a prevention notice under the PO/EO Act, and subsequently they were issued a fine as a result of failure to comply with that notice. It was a really interesting case because the fines under this act can be quite significant. But you'll be pleased to know that the property has now rectified these concerns and it does remain compliant. So it's a really good example of where action taken has driven a positive and successful result. What I will say is that these enforcement actions have generally been the exception. Most property owners do respond to our notices. Okay, moving on to the next steps of our program. As we continue to increase number of properties, we are now starting to reach the capacity of our officers to respond and complete some of the administrative tasks. We found that working across multiple platforms for different aspects of the property. So we've got information on ownership, we've got a different system for asset information, and this has led to some duplication of data, which can and has the potential to introduce data errors. So to overcome this, we've been working with our internal team to develop a software application that will automate some of our processes and reduce some of that administrative load. So one of those aspects is using a spatial data set for our asset data that was generated from our asset database. This spatial data set has now been integrated into our enterprise management software, so our council's internal systems. This data is actually now linked to maintenance schedules, and those maintenance schedules are linked with the property and property ownership. So using this approach, it's enabled us to find ownership details very easily based on asset location, and also the contact details for that property will always remain current in line with council's current database. So linking the data to the software has other benefits as well, because we can now also look at any subdivision or development applications relating to the land in real time, and this will help us moving forwards in identifying changes to the site or any additional assets that are being added or any assets that are being removed as a result of those changes. Another key thing, what I started off in my presentation was that we found engagement and emails were really beneficial in increasing compliance. So based on the successful outcomes of sending those email reminders, we're now developing a method to automate that process. And so when reports are due for a particular property against its maintenance schedule, an email notification will be sent out to the owner to remind them that they've got an inspection due. Pretty similar to receiving your utilities bill in the mail. It triggers you to say, yes, I've got to do something about this one. So that's the idea behind that. Just by doing that, it will significantly reduce the administrative burden, and we would likely see an increase in compliance based on that method. Another thing that we're developing at the moment is a way for property owners or contractors to submit their reports to council. As I said, at the moment, we receive them by email. What we're looking to do is have a form that's linked to council's website where a report can be uploaded to the system. Benefits of this is that the customer gets an instant notification confirmation that their report has been submitted successfully, and it also can help for them for their own record keeping and auditing purposes. So what happens with that is the intent is that once we receive the report through that system, this is automatically assigned to the property record in council systems. And this actually will remove a number of steps in our process. So at the moment, where we're receiving the email, we identify the property, we store the report, and then we have to update those details. This new application will take care of all of those steps. So I'm really excited to be moving into that space for our program. Additionally, the further development of that application, this will be able, once we've started adding data and reports into that system, it will be able to deliver us real-time information on the compliance status of all of the properties in our database. It will assist us to contact properties where they're non-compliant, And then other benefits of that is that all this data that's been collected, we can develop strategies to target particular areas where there's non-compliance issues, and the data will tell us a really nice story. So yeah, watch this space. Okay, so this next slide, as I said, it's just a snapshot of our compliance program. You can see that we have an estimated 1,000 properties throughout the Blacktown local government area with WSUD systems. Currently, in our current capacity, we're actively managing 60 of those, but we're continually improving that number every month. Overall, as I said in the slide with the graph, we're achieving a monthly average of around about 70% compliance rate, which is really encouraging. So the next stage is to improve and increase property participation. Okay, so just to summarize the presentation, for the most part, we found engaging with owners and contractors has produced successful outcomes for the compliance programs. Setting strategies to encourage owners to provide reports, such as using the email reminder, has seen an improvement in compliance. We're using existing technologies to support management of our program, such as the spatial software, and integrating that with existing council systems. For compliance enforcement, council has the authority to undertake works on behalf of the owner, but this can be quite labour intensive and cost intensive. So we've looked to outsource some of those activities. Yeah, and then the last point there is that whilst our compliance program focuses on maintenance compliance, there can be other issues relating to failure of WSUD systems that can cause other environmental concerns. So there are other avenues to tackle non-compliance. Okay, so that's all I've got. Got some time now to answer any questions you might have. I'll attempt to answer as many as I can, but if I can't, feel free to contact me, and I can discuss further with you. I'll put my details in the chat. So thank you all for listening.
Thanks for that, Kate. It was really interesting to kind of hear the update and provide it to everyone in this group, and I'm sure a lot of people found value in that. But in terms of questions, I might get Justine to unmute herself because I see she's dropped a question in the chat, but figured easier for you to say it than me to read it.
Fair enough. Hello, Kate. Thank you.
Hi, Justine.
That's interesting to hear. How many full-time roles or equivalent are required to run your compliance program? Is it something that you've got someone?
There's just two of us at the moment. There's myself and another compliance officer.
Yeah, okay. For how many properties?
There's 60 that we're managing currently.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's quite a commitment. Like, yeah, and it's needed, but it's such a huge commitment for resource poor councils. It's a really difficult situation.
Definitely, and that's where we see the benefit in using technology to help us take away some of those search functions, the administrative functions, so that we can focus in on gaining the property information that we need to set a property up in our system.
Yeah, well done. Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Edie?
Sorry, my mic was on mute. My question, thanks, Kate, for your presentation. It was awesome to get that summary of your challenges and where you're headed next. For the example you gave where a fine was provided to the property and it then prompted some compliance actions, what was that, if I'm able to ask, the amount that was on the fine that sort of prompted the action?
This particular fine was the first offence for non-complying with an order, and I think the first offence is $30,000.
Okay,
very
that's
significant.
quite a bit. Yeah, and so did they have to pay that fine after doing compliance as well, or?
I don't know the outcome of that one. That was handled with another section in council. Okay. But certainly the outcome from that activity was that the the on-site detention was maintained and is now still maintained in a good condition, which was really encouraging.
And what other team was it that helped you with this? Was it like compliance?
Environmental compliance, yeah.
Okay, yep. Thanks.
Thank you.
I guess, yeah, just for your benefit, Kate, Justine's from CSIRO and Dee Dee's at Camden Council.
Sorry.
That's so good.
Actually, if I could ask another question, actually, do you know how many on-site sewer management systems Blacktown Council would have, and if you have any full-time equivalent staff for that as well?
Great question. Specifically that asset, I don't. We've got 2,500 that we are actively managing in our program. There are more than 7,000 potential assets that we could manage, and that's just an estimate. So in terms of particular assets, we manage the entire system, not just individual assets. So for a property with an OSD, if it just has an OSD, we would consider that as a WSUD system.
Oh, sorry, I was referring to sewer management.
Oh, sorry, I misinterpreted the question. Surge, I don't have any exposure to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, oh good. I guess I was just curious because I think I'm aware that we have 1.5 full-time equivalent for sewer management, and I think the amount of properties from memory was like 1,000. And I think we've been working with Daniel to try and get numbers on how many properties that we may have with private WSUD, and it was close to that number. So I guess I was just curious to see if Blacktown had kind of equivalents as well for sewer and WSUD, so that we could also, I guess, argue for staff at that same sort of rate. But yeah, all good. That could be another question
and certainly something I'd be interested to know as a comparison. Yeah.
I see a question from Leo Crasty. I'm not sure if that's Leo, are you talking about this meeting? I'm not sure if you want to turn on your audio. I can kind of answer this question. Well, unless you're talking about the compliance program, which then would go to Kate. Leo, if you're talking about this meeting is part of the National WSUD Compliance Network, so that's being run by me, and Kate was invited to speak as part of this meeting. If you're talking about the framework is being led by me, who does work for Ocean Protect. Is there any other questions? Cool. Well, we might move on then, if that's okay. Well, thank you for that, Kate. It was really good to have an update from you and hear what's been happening since I've left and since the Dee Dee's left and all the stuff that's been happening there.
That's great. No, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to present.
That's okay. And if you can just drop your maybe contact details in the chat, Kate, just so that if people have any questions or want to get in contact, they can email you, call you, or whatever you like.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no problem. Will do.
Thanks. So in terms of an update on the framework, so since the last meeting in February, I am no longer the acting manager of marketing at Ocean Protect anymore, so I'm able to dedicate a little bit more time to working on trying to progress this a bit more with the public holidays, and I've had a little bit of time off and stuff, but I've still been progressing this a little bit. In terms of what the current framework looks like, this is what it was as it was released about a year ago now, which is weird to think it's been 12 months. But basically, there's the guideline, there's the process maps, and there's a mock-up information management system to really help manage the asset data. But what I'm trying to work towards, and there's still a bit of other things I'd like to add to this, but things that I'm thinking that would be helpful based off the feedback from last year's consultation period and ideas that I've been having since kind of the other network meetings, is one of the things that people are keen to look at is getting more information on how to implement the compliance program or more help about that. And so I am in discussions at the moment of trying to implement a compliance program with one council and maybe a few others soon. But what I'd like to do is to develop that into an actual manual. So there is a document dedicated to that, because I think having step-by-step guidance on how to do it, how to interact with it, then it means you don't have to rely on me, you don't have to rely on anyone. You could do it internally, or you could go finding someone externally to do it. And so that's probably not something I'm going to have done this year, but it is something we're going to try to start working on soon. In terms of kind of then having an operational guideline, which really is just the current guideline that is part of the framework. So I think having a guideline outlining a way of how to operate it. And so that is something I'm going to kind of rename it to really be about operating the compliance program. And then the other one, which being a manual, would be about implementing the compliance program. Another thing that I've found that most people want a lot more information about is the legal information. So probably dedicating another document, which would be a legal handbook around this, which would focus on private and public assets to really help councils understand what the law says across the country on this, maybe have a dedicated chapter, section per state or something along those lines. So that's something I'll be looking to try and do at some point. Again, that might take a little bit of time, but we have had lawyers look at 5 states now. And so it's something that I could probably pull together, not too, wouldn't be too bad. In terms of process maps, again, there's already the process maps which are part of the framework, so there wouldn't be too much change to that. I'll be talking about some minor updates from the consultation period for that though soon. And then looking at kind of providing some more supplementary materials. So currently in the, I guess, guideline, the operational guideline, there are fact sheets and letters and all of that sort of information that councils can copy and paste into their own copies, templates that they use in their organization, but looking at trying to just provide that even just prepared visually and written out so that councils can just use it straight away if they don't want to go down that process of having to develop their own fact sheet, and just other materials as well included in that kind of supplementary material package, which really is kind of like an appendices to the framework. Then there is the mock-up WSUD information management system, which I'll touch on soon. And then something I would like to do again to really help councils with implementing the framework, implementing a compliance program, looking at WSUD maintenance, is kind of developing some sort of survey, questionnaire thing that could help people develop their own compliance program. So you could input stuff about how much money you have, how much funding you have, how much staff you have, what resources you have. And then it can kind of help councils understand how they could use the framework or what sort of compliance program they could operate, because each council is going to do it different. Each council has a different amount of funding, support, resourcing for that. So I think if I'm able to try and create something like that, I think that could really help push this framework a bit more. In terms of the guideline, one of the suggestions for it was to slightly change the title. So the framework does look at private assets mainly. And so someone was suggesting that, which is currently called the WSUD Maintenance Compliance Program Guideline, to add the word private to the start of it, just to make it clear that this framework really is focused on private. And so that is something I am considering doing for this. And then also the idea of chucking in the word operation was something that I've been thinking about to help with that distinction between implementation and operating the compliance program. Then a whole bunch of people provided a lot of feedback on the guidelines. Some of those people are here today, and thank you for that feedback you provided last year. And so I'll be looking to try condense it a little bit to see if there's any duplication I can remove, any wording I can move, any things to make it even a bit simpler and less, I guess, dense, because there is quite a lot of information in this current guideline. Then I have started working on creating the actual fact sheets. So in the appendices, they're just the text-based, where it's just like, here's the words, but I want to actually create it and just be like, here's the actual fact sheet, so you can just start using that. And then in terms of the letters, there was a bit of feedback about improving readability for the general public. And so that's something I'll be bringing in to help increase that readability and, I guess, more user-friendly for the councils. And yeah, that's the guideline at the moment. In terms of the process map, so I'm not sure if many people have paid attention to the symbology used within the process maps. However, I was trying to use something called Unified Modeled Language, which is a standard for process maps for the symbology. However, some people have asked that it's a bit confusing. And so I'm contemplating simplifying it just by removing some of these ones, which might only be there for some of the people that really want that finer detail, but really it's just activity is that main one that you need out of these blue ones. Saying this is an activity happening at this point, whether a document is generated or not, you can find that out in the guidelines. So that's probably a way I'm going to move forward with the process maps. In terms of the mock-up information management system, I haven't had the chance to really touch that yet since the consultation. There was a tiny bit of feedback on this, and I'll be looking to act on that or talk to the people that provided that. But for now, it is kind of how it has been. But yeah, that's that. In terms of other updates, I'm hoping to say that I'm close to finalizing a pilot agreement for the framework. I am in discussions with some people at the moment about piloting it in a New South Wales council. The procurement process has started for that, so I'm hoping in the coming few months I might be able to talk more about that. In terms of working on a Blacktown City Council case study, so something that people really wanted was a case study on Blacktown's work and their program. And so I'm going to work with Kate to develop a case study so that councils can kind of see and have that information about how many full-time employees they have or how many assets or how they do it, how do they fund it, what's their lessons, their key takeaways, and having that in something that's easy to read. Basically summarizing a lot of what Kate said today, but creating something that can be part of the framework. And then to help use of the website, I'm looking to update that as well with just some minor updates, some new pages, and some extra resources on there. And so I'm hoping that by June or potentially the following network meeting after that, that I could have some of these materials out and available again as a second kind of version of the framework. I won't be able to have that whole future version that I've talked about today, but I'm hoping that, in the next few months, I can have something out, an updated guideline, updated process maps, and the updated information management system. And then with time, I'm going to continue to add more and more. And as people have more feedback and input and comments, and as I pilot it, it'll grow and evolve as that happens. But so that is kind of, the update for now. Again, I haven't had a lot of time, so it's just been doing little bits here and there, but I am starting to get back into it now, which is good. But curious to know if anyone has any questions, comments, feedback, ideas that they want to discuss about the framework or anything I'm doing. And then I'm also happy to stick around at the end if people just want to talk about anything else as well.
I have a question, Dan, but Leo has put one in the chat first.
Yeah, so Leo, how would Enviro Australis be engaged in the handbook? So if you're talking about the guideline, the handbooks and all of that sort of documents, manufacturers like Enviro Australis can provide in-principle support, and I'd be happy to organise a meeting to discuss what that looks like. But at the moment, there are 7 organisations in Australia that have provided in-principle support, which includes stormwater associations, catchment groups, and also a manufacturer and a company as well. So that is something I'm happy to discuss with you, Leo. Outside of just get in contact with me and we can have a chat. In terms of the comment before that, thank you, Daniel, very important work. I like to have an online meeting discussion about passive irrigation assets, how industry can work with council developers. I'll reach out to you and we can have a chat about that. But I'll hand it over to Justine if you had a question.
I have a comment and then a question.
Yeah,
so my comment would be around the title and things. You need to be really clear in definition. So we've got, at the moment, we've got the yellow book, the O&M manual. I think there needs to be a really clear definition that yours is compliance, and so just flagging that. But the other thing was, and this is fresh off the bat. So I'm in the SQUID task force and working on maintenance, and we were having a conversation just this morning about. So currently the O&M manual, the yellow book, is so for those who don't know, it's a manual put together for just information mostly about grey infrastructure, GPTs, and sort of step-by-step lists of how to perform maintenance on each of the devices. And so we were talking about how at the moment Stormwater New South Wales owns that manual because they put it together, but it's such a valuable resource. It really should be come under the Stormwater Australia umbrella, and it should be a resource that everyone has access to. And I wonder if what are yours and Ocean Protect's thoughts around where your guidelines will sit eventually? I mean, it'd be great if everyone had access to it. It would improve so much. But,
Yeah. No,
Ocean Protect to fund it long term.
yeah. So I guess at the moment, Ocean Protect is looking to, to establish this to help kind of get it established enough that we don't have to have as much involvement as we have at the moment, because we do want to kind of slowly step away from it while continuing to help sure that it doesn't fall over with us just completely letting go. And so, yeah, we are looking at, we are open to the idea of handing this over to another organization. Stormwater Australia would make the most sense in terms of them being the National Association for Stormwater. At the moment, yeah, I'm sure there's lots of conversations going on around, yeah, other organizations that could do it as well. And I am talking to someone that maybe could be a future option in a few years. But
Yeah.
at the moment, the idea is get this established, set it up, and hand it over with some sort of way that I'm still some sort of advisor role or whatever, with some of the funding, maybe from Ocean Protect, to help ensure that it continues, but in a way that it does fall under some sort of association, some sort of non-profit or some sort of organization, and bringing in the Stormwater New South Wales guideline, maintenance, operation and maintenance guideline would be useful to kind of really have that all in one package. And that is hopefully something that can happen at some point. I guess, have been talking to Andrew a little bit about maybe working to help bring the Stormwater New South Wales guideline in accordance with the framework, so that they can really work together. And maybe at some point there could even be an accreditation based off that guideline, so that the councils and others can really rely on the people providing maintenance services across the country.
Yeah, that'd be so good. Yeah. I have one more question, just quickly. I just want to know interest from. I know you've been doing meetings and trying to incorporate state and territory. Is everyone keen and jumping on board, or are there any states and territories that you're having trouble trying to get information from and contact with?
I guess eastern states have been the easiest to talk with, and have had the most to do with. I am part of some other kind of national groups as well, which I do kind of hear a bit here and there about what's happening in Western Australia, South Australia as well. So there is a little bit of interest around the framework there, but really I think the East Coast is where most of the conversations have been. But I am more than happy to be having those conversations with any state and territory. I haven't had anything really to do with Northern Territory, though I think one or two people have attended a network meeting, but otherwise haven't really had contact with them.
Yeah, it'd be good to get everyone involved, particularly because Australia is often just the East Coast. So, like, to get that culture of uptake. Yeah, it'd be good to get everyone involved. Yeah, I'll brainstorm and see if there's anything we can do.
And that's why we chose to expand the legislation review to Tasmania and South Australia, to really help push it. And maybe at some point it can even be pushed to the other states to have a lawyer, or it is just something that I can do myself. But can have a look into that. So,
watch this space, hey? We'll talk. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
No worries. Is there any other questions from anyone else? Any comments, feedback, ideas, or?
I wouldn't mind asking just generally, and terribly lazy of me, but organisations like Stormwater New South Wales and Stormwater Australia, it's been on my mind. So I'm from Hunter Water, and I've heard a few people mention lately this SQUID task force. And it was on my mind earlier in the year about, joining these organisations. Daniel, Justine, anyone, what are they? What is Stormwater New South Wales? And, is it worth someone like me trying to slice out some of my time to follow along?
Yes, it is.
I assume so, you know, but I just thought may as well ask.
Great question. I'll let you go, Dan, and then I'll chime in.
Well, I'm not really part of Stormwater New South Wales or any of those groups, so it might be better to be handed over to Justine. I was just going to be like, yeah, the only one I'm really doing is leading the National WSUD Compliance Network, and I do think it is a worthwhile thing to get involved because we're all working towards the same thing. There's always terms about competitors and work like trying to be the best and stuff, but we're all really just trying to protect the environment, protect the community, and just try to get the best outcome for everyone. So I think it does make sense to pool resources, to pool ideas, pool the experts together to discuss and work together on things. But I'll hand it over to you, Justine.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll start with Stormwater New South Wales. So a lot of states have a stormwater association. So in New South Wales, it's Stormwater New South Wales. And it's basically a group of people that work across the stormwater sector coming together to try and make improvements in the space. And so we have a monthly newsletter so you can keep on top of news that's happening, any advocacy, any like current research that's coming out. But it's also like having that network in your back pocket. So to be able to like contact someone and say, I've got this problem with stormwater management, whatever it is, is there anyone there that can help me? And out of that, the Stormwater New South Wales Association, we have now a conference every year and a half called Frank, and that's coming up in the Hunter Valley. You said you were from Hunter? Yeah. So it'd be awesome if you could come. Yeah, and so that's a conference where we talk about all things stormwater, but quite broadly as well in terms of how like climate change is affecting the flooding, the new the guidelines coming out, things like that. And then from Frank has come out that said from the conference that has the task force that has come out of that, where people got together and said, we've been waiting for government policy initiatives to come out and nothing's happening. So we're going to do it ourselves as an industry group. And that's why Dan's doing the framework, but the task force is looking at more broadly, it's looking at the life cycle of squids, so grey infrastructure squids, and also compliance in terms of kind of like a bit of a review of the Squid program, I guess, to some extent. So yeah, it's definitely worth joining if you haven't joined, or just reach out if you've got questions and you want to know more. I'm happy to flick you the last, if you want to put your email in the chat, Brent, I'll flick you the last newsletter.
Yeah, cool.
Else is interested as well, just to see what kind of things, information that you get out. And I can't remember the pricing. It's about 150. Oh, I can't remember to join as an individual. But yeah, plug for Frank. Frank's coming up in October in the Hunter Valley.
Yeah, at the Mercure at the Colburn. It's nice out there, and that's a nice time of year. So
yeah, okay. And we're trying to make the conference more LGA friendly. So we appreciate that. You're very LGAs in general are quite resource poor, and so we're trying to plan so that we have a really a heavy focus for people in councils on one of the days in particular. So if you can only come to one day, you come to that day.
Yeah,
yeah, we're doing our best to try and create good information for everyone to make their jobs easier, basically.
Yep. Sounds good. Appreciate the explanation. Thank you.
For the plug, it's almost like, contacted you beforehand to say, hey, ask me about this. I like it. Hopefully we see you there.
Sure.
And while we're on the topic of, I guess, the Squid Task Force and stuff, I did just want to put a little plug for a survey they have at the moment, which is closing this Friday, which maybe Justine, you can talk to more than I can, but I was just told to plug it, so happy to put it here.
Oh, there are a few surveys coming out across the process of the task force, and it's basically to try and engage with everyone that's out there and to try and be transparent about our process so you can be involved each step of the way. And so at the moment, I can't even remember what that survey is about. Life cycle.
Life cycle and safety criteria.
Yeah, the other one's about life cycle in terms of what's most important to include in the life cycle and what kind of tool that we're after, because we're hoping to create a tool that people can use for costings. And then just today I wrote another survey that'll come out hopefully in the next Stormwater New South Wales newsletter, and that's more about what councils need in terms of like cheat sheets for squid maintenance. templates for reporting, templates for the maintenance activities, that kind of thing. Thank you for the plugs. This is great.
Yep, that's all good. And Leo Crusty has commented saying he likes your attitude, wished he could engage.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. Yeah, reach out. Yeah.
Is there any other questions from anyone, or happy to just kind of look to wrap things up? Cool.
If you're wrapping things up, I will say when I read that survey that it seemed obvious and I felt stupid to say it, but I had never thought about safety with the squid maintenance. And I realized that I'd never thought about it because, so we get development applications referred to us that are in our catchments, and we assess them for potential impacts to water quality. So we only see, yay so far through the development process, but obviously safety in terms of maintenance has never been mentioned. I mean, we very rarely see maintenance details, which is something that we're trying to work on. But yeah, it was just interesting to sort of think about. I thought it was good.
I didn't think you're alone there, Brent. There's a lot of people in the same boat, and that's what we're all here for.
Yeah, so many people can get caught up in the stormwater industry just being an environmental industry, but there's safety stuff, there's economic stuff, there's health implications. There's so many different areas of things that we need to be considering, and it's good that people are starting to have those conversations and talk about it.
And ideally, we have the same kind of guidelines so that everyone can have the most up-to-date information rather than trying to find it yourself. I think that's been part of the problem in the past, is everyone's trying to find information on their own.
Yeah.
I think, I always try and think about things from other people's perspectives. And so, a lot of my role is to say, oh, no, not good enough. You didn't meet our standard. And there's a lot to consider if you're a, development planner or a development engineer and you're trying to design a solution. You've got all these constraints and all these standards to meet. I wouldn't want the job, but yeah, the more that I sort of learn about it, the more that I don't know. I think it's helps, even though safety isn't a concern for Hunter Water. Understanding all the different related aspects helps to give better feedback and just understand, because we need practical solutions that are going to operate in accordance with the original design intent. Otherwise, all this effort that we put into this process is somewhat futile.
Yeah, you should definitely come to Frank and join the conversations. There's a lot of people are saying the same thing. And even just being in a room where people are saying the same thing, having the same problems as you, just feels comforting. Yeah.
Cool. Well, just looking to wrap up, and again, still happy to stick around and have more conversations if people want to have a chat. But so the next network meeting will be June 25th. And so you can join, register with that giant QR code, or you can go to wsuccompliance.com.au/network, and the registration will be there in the next few days on the actual website. And there will be a wrap-up email coming out in the next few days about this meeting, where it will have the registration stuff there as well. So don't stress too much about getting that today. But so that'll be in 2 months. And then, yeah, that's really the end of today's meeting. Again, more than happy to have chats between then and now about this, about anything WSUD related, more than happy to. You can email me, you can call me, check out wsuccompliance.com.au for more. That's where all the previous meetings, recordings, and slides are at the moment, and today's will be there soon. Thank you to Kate Murphy for your update today. It was appreciated for you coming along and sharing the update. And it's great to hear what's been going on since I've left. And so, yeah, and thank you everyone else for coming along today and getting involved and sharing your thoughts and ideas and questions. Hopefully see you soon or at the next network meeting, everyone.